Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, depending on where your whereabouts. I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm super happy that my good old friend Agnes invited me to be able to speak on one of my favorite topics. I hope I won't bore you to death, because I will mention quite a lot of different words like taxonomies, ontologies, and the like, since that's where I spend most of my time as an information architect. Briefly about this outline for today is that I intend to speak about where we are going in terms of the digital workplace, the emerging digital workplace, beyond the internet, beyond SharePoint and Office 365. And hence that I know my dear old friend Agnes is super smart into Microsoft. I will actually spend a little bit more time on not so much Microsoft-ish stuff. If you would like me to speed up on the other stuff that is not Microsoft-ish, I could jump into the later slides. I have like 20 slides about where I'm seeing what's happening in Office 365, hybrid search, and anything else in that domain. Briefly about me, I work as a IT professional and have been doing so for quite a long time. Sadly, I'm turning 50 this year, which is a strange feeling anyway. So I've been running my own business for 22 years and been a researcher at the IT University here in Gothenburg since 2002 and still working on that. Not finished my PhD because I'm an industrial PhD. That means that I will probably never be finished with that work. But anyway, that's who I am. And now then, let's see if I can. So whereabout do I come from? Well, I work since 2016 at a company called Findwise, and as it states in our name, we work with search, obviously, and data and all that relevant stuff, and are scattered around Scandinavia, but everything started way back 2005, where two of my best friends, Urban and Bengt, started the company. And basically this is what we do. We try to improve findability, so all our services are revolving around that, and as you can see, taxonomy, metadata, content structure, navigation, and all that stuff. That's where I am working most of the time spent. Anyway, going back a little bit, and I was considering Moore's law, if you know the Moore's law, which says that the semiconductor computers will be increasingly going faster and faster. And actually, in that paper, the popular science paper where he published that Moore's law, 1965, there were an illustrator who made this, very fancy illustration about the future. And I think it's quite fascinating today, because this is the reality of today. Way back 1965, people were laughing about having a computer in your home, having a computer in terms of notions and cosmetics. But anybody who's been having their iPhone as my precious, you know that you pimp it, you use it every day, and it's a wearable computer that you carry around everywhere. So having that in mind, 52 years and going forward, we really don't know where we're going, except we have an exponential rate of data and information that are streaming from all our life. And our life is becoming digitized anywhere. Backing off a little bit more, the reality is that, well, we are, except for using the tool and toolkits that we have in front of us, we are humans, and humans do like to collaborate. That's kind of the assumption, that we as humans are very good at collaborating, or not agreeing, which is disagreement, which is the conversations that we have. The reason for that is that we are building trust amongst our peers to solve critical issues and build a belonging to a community or a family or a workplace. And in that, we do use lots of different communications means to accomplish the work we are supposed to do, or everyday life, if you will. So together, yeah, that's what it's all about. We're working together. And my boring dissertation, which I will not bore you with, is dealing with lots of things around togetherness, communities of practice, knowledge management, and the like. Namely, how do people use digital means to actually collaborate and create sustainable communities that brings value either to the market as communities of innovation, where we as participants actually innovate and drive change, or within the company where we share ideas to build new products or services or whatever that could be. Anybody who's been working with information management knows these short abbreviation. And this is the problem. It's not solved by any fancy-pantsy new AI, because if we don't behave accordingly and put in the things in a manner that works, we don't get a sort of sustainable organizing principles, because shit in, shit out. And that means that for me, who work with search, obviously in my everyday pursuit, I meet clients who have really, really big intranets, huge SharePoint farms, and have extreme low values in findability because they have shitload of bad content, bad data. And that is a human problem. It's not a computer problem. And that will end up like this. It's going to be a digital landfill with lots of junk. It's just looking at my own personal computing, trying to wade through all my emails, all my online channels to find the feeds and things that I have to take on for my everyday pursuit. And if you don't have organizing principles, I stole this, it's not copyrighted, but this is from a good old comic series. But it basically tells you that if you don't have organizing principles, people start building things without any rules, without any guidelines, any guardrails, telling you what to do and where to be. And this is basically, it could be a rendering of a SharePoint form in any enterprise as we speak, because it's a very popular tool. It works very efficiently to start, but people are reluctant to either add metadata, add content structure, and by that they end up having team sites that overlapping, team sites that crossing boundaries, and it becomes impossible to find anything. One of my clients that I worked with for 1 year ago, a big car manufacturer from the city where I come from, Gothenburg, have approximately 110,000 SharePoint sites and counting. So that would take almost a lifetime just to see the first page of each of every of these SharePoint sites, and on top of that you have all the file shares and all the other things resting around. Having that in mind, we know that, well, if we behave accordingly, we could align into processes. And this is a typical process of people, humans, trying to collaborate to achieve a goal. The problem is, this is a picture. It's a picture of a state, but the reality is that since this picture was taken in 1910 in New Zealand, I reckon neither of these women ever put up the works by sitting in the process line as this, because they're humans. So they were probably doing different kinds of collaboration to do the different tasks that this specific task was set up to do. And the codification of information is nothing new. And as you know, we've been doing this for quite a long time. So content has been around for many, many thousands of years. The only difference is that we, way back in the Babylon time, when they tried to have an ERP system in mud to keep track of how much taxes the king should get from the peasants coming into town, which is what's stated in this one here. We have now digitized it into computers, but the basics is the same. You need to keep track of where your content sits, how it's organized, in which collection it's sitting, and how it will be findable for someone to retrieve it and use it. Secondly, being humans means that we are reluctant to read manuals. I hate to read manuals. I know that there's a lot of good instructions out there how to learn the tooling of my everyday work. But reality is that I don't have time to read a manual. I skip it or try to find a YouTube clip to, fast forward anything in terms of learning experiences. So, in that codification of information that we've been doing, we have also put in different means to bring order to that, and this is the Rosetta Stone, as you know, is situated in the British Museum, which is the first move to be able to decipher the hieroglyphs from the Egyptian people, due to the fact that the text is written in 3 different scripts on the very same stone, and by that they were able to decipher the codification system. Moving into our domain, that could be simple things that we have a standardized way to arrange formats or character sets. As we all know, every software vendor from the US likes to have everything working in ASCII, but everybody else who lives in the rest of the world would like to have UTF-8, so we actually can get our special characters as we like them. Here in Sweden we have the Ö, and other countries have their special characters, meaning the translations of the codified items that make up the data and the information needs to be deciphered by the machinery that we provide us with. One of my very good friends, Abby Covert, she used to be running the Information Architecture Association for a couple of years, and she wrote a pretty good read, and I have been so kind to steal with pride from her some of the messages that she pulled out. Not that I would say the same things, but she put them in a very nice wording. I recommend you to read her books and actually listen to her talks as well. Anyway, the thing is, we know the world is a mess, and most of the mess is based out of information. So what do we do as an information architecture? Well, we are trying to have tooling and concepts to people so that we make sense out of this mess. This is basically what I do in my everyday work, trying to get some sensical, commonsensical grounds whereupon we can communicate and share our ideas and so forth. But the problem is we're using words, we are using concepts, we are using topics, and meaning, when you put meaning into them, the translation, the deciphering of the codification of the data, it becomes subjective. It depends on who you are, what kind of role you have, what political scenery you see, what's the demographics within the company, how complex is the set of things you're looking at. And in many cases, I would say that most information problems and communication problems are due to the fact that meaning gets lost in translation between, for instance, different practices. So a person working at the HR department might speak the HR lingo of the corporate setting. When he or she meets a technical engineer, very specific guy sitting doing his CAD/CAM application, they might talk the corporate language, but when they kind of cross the boundaries between 2 different practices, it becomes problematic because they put different meanings to the very same words, to the very same things, and hence we have misunderstandings. I've been married now for 19 years, and I'm sad to say that still, well, my wife has to cope with me, and we do have a lot of communication ongoing, obviously, in everyday life, as we do. But sometimes we just misunderstand each other. due to the fact we are interpreting the communications transmitted either verbally or textually between us. And see, even so, we know each other, still we have communications problems. Another thing is that, well, we need to be sharing a common ground, things that we agree upon so that we can codify things across practices or processes or different communities of people. The thing is, when we have uncontrolled vocabularies, or in terms of SharePoint, that means system keywords. Taxonomies is another word for it, which means that people can add any user-generated content tags, which is good. I like it. I like it on Flickr. I like it on many other places. The problem is that they increase the linguistic insecurity, which means that if you have dual meaning, or you have, well, misreading a term, a concept, it can be very, very frustrating for anybody to try to navigate that. I went to a client's site a year ago to look under the hood in their SharePoint farm. They had a huge one, both on-premise and moving out into Office 365. And they wanted me to look at the opportunities to build a more kind of foundation taxonomies to structure up their content, and asked me to dive into the system keywords within SharePoint. And we realized when we dumped out all the words that we had approximately 40,000 words. Out of those, I deciphered 5 or 10% of them were related to control vocabularies, being the products, the services, the places, the processes that the company was working with, different pronunciations, misspellings, and what have you. The rest was crap. It was really, really bad tags, or wrongly put in tags. And when you use the search engine, it used tags to be able to help the user to navigate. But given the fact of masses of user-generated shit, it became almost impossible to navigate. Basically, one could consider there's only 5 ways to organize anything, basically, in life. The first one is location. So if I take location saying I am situated in Gothenburg, which is a place in the world. Gothenburg is spelled with a G, which is in an alphabetical order, which comes before H in the alphabetical order. The time being, well, time now is almost 20 past 5, and I'm situated here. The category of this town is a town related to a harbor city or a city nearby the sea. So there's a lot of topical ways of describing my location. And hierarchically, Gothenburg is a municipality within the west of Sweden, the county of West Sweden, and it's a part of Sweden which is part of Europe. So there's a hierarchical thematic way of organizing the same kind of concept. And for many of the things you have in your everyday life, you can actually organize it in either of these 5 very simple ways. And we do organizing. This is what we do in everyday life. I mean, the most frustrating thing is when you go into a supermarket or a grocery store, which you are not acquainted with, it takes you approximately twice as long time to do your, to find the groceries that you need to buy to, pull out a good dinner with for your family, because you don't know the pathways. Whereabout is the milk? Where is the groceries? The organizing principles might not be the same. And all of you know that, well, consumer studies tried to force us to buy more candy, so the candy is very closely organized into the cashier's desk, because when you are at the end of your journey to foraging for food, you become really hungry, and then you start buying shit food. and that is one of the organizing principles of the user, based on the user behavior. The good thing in life is that there are actually pretty good organizing principles, and some of the things I would like to spend some extra time on today would be things related to what we could define as open standards, or standards or means for based out of, for instance, internet and the structures we have on the layered platform on the internet, but also linked data, web of data, Dublin core, schema.org, and some other organizing principles. Because looking at those external internet things of organizing things actually can give us some insights on where we should be, going in terms of organizing our internal workplace arrangement. One of my best friends, Robert Glushko, who's a professor at Berkeley University in the US, and he was supposed to come to my university this fall to do a lecture, has, together with a couple of other people within my discipline, put out a very, very good book. It's a Bible in terms of reading. I don't read it out loud for my kids, but it's a really good read. It's called A Discipline of Organizing. And I had the opportunity to steal some of his thoughts around this, because when you do any kind of organizing of the content, the data, the information that you have to deal with, you have to consider a set of very critical, simple questions. What is being organized? Is it the product catalog? Is it the project documentation for a specific time-based organizing of something? Why is it organized? What's the purpose, the outcome of the report that you're writing, the PowerPoint you're providing, the email you're sending? How much is it being organized? Do we have a relevant set of resources to actually do cataloging, categorization in terms of like librarian work, if you will? Or do we lack the resources to actually undertake those questions? When is it being organized? By whom? And for who? And where is it organized? Because that is also kind of critical. Whereabout will the collection of things we are organizing be stored? And we do like to organize things in libraries, in markets, in museums, in zoos, vineyards, whatever it could be. And considering this fact, you could take, if you go to the National Natural Museum, it's stuffed animals. And the guy who's organizing things in the museum, he or she has the opportunity to organize a very nice scenery where the antelopes and the lions and the tiger, whatever, they could be in the same room. But if you take the same instance, being animals with a category and a taxonomy accordingly and everything, it's situated in a context being the African savanna, and you put it in the zoo, that organizing principle would basically fail, because the lions would eat the antelopes, and by the end of the day there will be no antelopes. So that you have same kind of resources, but you have different reference points to how you want to organize these different reference points. And that comes into personal information as well as to living things or going down in a grocery store. So that means we have things in an organizing system that we have to organize jointly to support different types of interactions, be it on a mobile, be it on different sensors, be it on a screen, or whatever, wearable computing, or whatever it could be. We arrange the collection of resources. Resources could be content, it could be documents, it could be web pages, it could be sites, a collection of things. So, we organize our books, and some people like to organize them by ISBN number, others by color, others by author. Who is to choose the best organizing principles for your library? The second is the recall from the organizing system, because we want to be able to collect the resources that we have arranged in those intentional ways. And this is one of the main problems, because it might be so that the original intent to record keeping for a specific content type or of a specific item that you're providing might have one, set of organizing principles. Being in a specific project team, we want to organize our documents by a document number that we agree upon, and which is related to the specific outcome, being a product or a service that we're going to do going forward. Someone else who has a very different way of looking at the same documentation would possibly like to organize it with market. What kind of market is it that the product is you're developing? And by then you will have location, you will have different customer segments or whatever. That means the intent we have to arrange information might change over the time. And this is what we see in most of the cases, most of the environments where I work. I find this is one of the problems, especially when you go into master data, because you are focusing on trying to get a golden standard. But the reality is that there will never be a golden standard, because people will disagree on the meaning of the concepts that's stored and the meaning of the intent of how they're going to support the interactions. So if you define the information architecture according to this, it's designing an abstract, an effective way to organize your information, which is the intentional arrangement. As in the library, we have categories, so you, as a librarian, you know where to go to find a specific book. Or in a team site, you organize it according to topics or to organizational belonging or timely-based things or whatever. All organizing principles you have. But then you have also interaction support to facilitate the navigation between the collections and the resources to use them. So that ends up in my kind of first stop in navigating for today, and I wanted to be going quite shortly into a set of cases. In my dissertation, and this is one of the boring pictures from my dissertation to become soon, I have focused on content practices and communities for content practice, providing content provisioning. And I realized that basically there are kind of a reoccurring theme, independently if you're doing news on an internet, if you're providing emails or whatever, you have the same kind of very generic structure. There is someone asking you to do something, you have a task, you have a goal and aim, and that organizing is done through the interaction in social network, in a participatory conversation with someone. And then you start to compile and build your whatever content that could be. You put it into a collection, and then hopefully someone of the users of your content will be finding it in any of the different devices there's possible to find. It sounds very simple. The thing is, well, if you go to an internet or an internet manager, well, they're really good at in the CMS environment to do publishing, and possibly to some extent do linking. Everybody knows that the intranets are poorly linked, hence why the Googlish thinking is not working, because it's really comprised by collections of documents in a completely different, set of order, and then putting things into context, which in my terms means adding relevant metadata to describe what the content is all about and who's the audience in terms of reaching for the content. Basically this: define the scope, create, edit, put in context, find and use, and possibly then delete and archive. The thing is also that documents, which we speak mainly about still, we are still quite document-centric, especially when you work with Microsoft. You have a document repository, a library. But the documents go from very, narrative stories, which is, like books and stuff, into transactional data, or like in invoices, meaning that the data spectrum is pretty wide, and you need to, delimit whereabout in the spectrum you will be focusing in when you're going to do a good findability for whatever you are organizing. Jumping into just a quick here about my favorite star, Mr. Tim Berners-Lee. He stated 20 years ago almost the semantic web, and to make that easier to understand, he stated even easier with a 5-star stairway, saying which ways you should publish your data so it's referenceable, it has a unique identifier, it's using open standards so it can be shareable, and it will be intertwined with other data collections to make it semantically better improved. End of story. I can give you more about this. So, having that in mind, I considered how could we actually build a semantic workplace, being a workplace where we add meaning to the content we are developing. And this is, well, if I ask any of my clients, do you want more metadata? They say, yeah, it would be very nice if someone would be so kind and organize the thing so I can find it. Well, would you please do the organizing of the things? No, I won't. I don't have time to spend to add any metadata. I will submit all my spreadsheets, my PowerPoints with any kind of reference ID to tell you what it's all about, and I hope for the best that the search engine will make it, findable. So that means we actually do have to participate and do this together in a concerted way, meaning that we shouldn't put an overload on the end users. And we need to agree on control vocabularies that will be able to attach to any kind of content, call it control vocabularies, taxonomies, or whatever you will call it, standards. And out of those standards or control vocabularies, we need to have a cherry picking, meaning that if I, for instance, I'm going to show you later today some healthcare examples, and it's difficult because, I mean, if you have a vocabulary that is, covering almost 30,000 words, it's, it becomes impossible to navigate. So you're having to narrow it down, the vocabularies to be used, and pick those for the specific purpose, for the utility that you have at hand. Secondly, we obviously need to have governance, because someone has to be able to own and understand and steward what the data is all about. Because if we don't do that, it will be diluted and it will become a landfill of digital trash. So one thing I did, basically, you're looking at to Japanese guys who have been working with just-in-time and everything else, because they're pretty good at organizing principles in the workplace. So I took the 5S principles from our Japanese fellows and put that into context on how could I use the 5S's to do the same thing that they do to organize a sustainable workplace in a manufacturing site, and move that into a knowledge creation site and having the same ambitions. And I think it actually works to transform this. So what you need to do, you need to sort out, when in doubt, you should, weed it out. You have to have an order so you know where things should go, what should go where and why. You should have standardized ways of continuously improve your content, or clean it up, if you will, clean up your desk in small efforts. You need to standardize the way and the means you use your content in either of the technologies, and you need to have feedback loops from analytics tools like the ones you have in Elastic Stack, for instance, from Elastic, where you can actually see the user behavior, your behavior, and by that have a learning experience. Say, well, I need to weed out this, or I'll let the system help me to do this, but a kind of continuous effort to keep your workplace tidy and efficient, so you know where your tools are, so you know where your tools are in terms of doing the tasks you're going to achieve together with your fellow colleagues. And putting this into well, any workplace today. We have personal data, we have teamwork, we have task-oriented information, we have communication, and we have record keeping. And you should have pretty straightforward policies telling you what should go where and why in terms of all of these, different features. So moving into the cases. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I have cases both where I have lots of SharePoint things, but I would like to actually move a little bit away from that just to show you other workplace environments where we have tried to use different technologies and different practices to enhance or help and guide the user. And the first one is a pilot, which I am working on as we speak now for NHS in England, National Health Service, and their health education in England, which are responsible for all medical training for medical professionals. And they have a vast amount of e-learning resources in several different portals, and it's not concerted. It's very, very difficult. It comes from clinical level to hospital level to regional level to national level. In terms of Wales and Scotland and England don't have even the same systems and so forth. A mess, basically. Very difficult to find things. And the other one is a research project which I have been engaged with together with my fellow peers, where we have semantically and annotated electronic health records. And electronic health records is the transactional, it's the codification system for medical professionals. Going forward. So in this high level, we have done a very simple structure here. On one side, we have a multitude of content resources, and in this case, we took two very different ones. One being a traditional CMS, and the other one being a schema-based, structured repository. We run those through a pipeline where we index those into a sandbox using Elastic and Smart Logic, which is an ontology management tool. I will tell you a little bit more about that shortly, to be able to target the information and assign concepts, relationships, and models to the content, similar to what you can see in the ways Microsoft Graph is working within the SharePoint environment, if you're acquainted with that one. So this is the pipeline, and i3 is the framework that my fellow colleagues have built. It's a framework that works with any search engine, and it's basically have a very good setup for building connectors to any content repository. You configure those, then you do a data processing and enrichment, and in that enrichment process, we are using the models that we have pulled together. Models in this time could be taxonomies, control vocabularies, and ontologies. These are mapped in the processing steps and then sent forward into the Elasticsearch, where we have a search service so you can get a user interface to see how it looks like. So moving into the ontology management tool, and for many of you it's a unknown domain, so I'm sorry, it might be a little bit boring and technical here, but anyway, the ways we do here is that we want to have a pretty decent way of organizing our concepts, as I said, into hierarchical structures, meaning taxonomies, with broader and narrower terms. We want to have domain models where we are able to build relationships, as we do in schema-based databases or data models, as you have been doing probably, some of you. And all of that we can do in this kind of tool. So we have, for instance, care processes, which is one domain. We have conditions and diseases. We have professional disciplines. We have health and well-being roles. And we have a multitude of more different taxonomies that we built for this proof of concept. Secondly, as you can see here, we have this SCOS, which is a simple knowledge organizing system, which is a standardized way to describe a taxonomy. The thing here, as you can see in the picture, is that we have the specific concept being diabetes, and it has broader and narrower terms, hence a taxonomy, But we have also built in the ontology things, meaning that we have relationships to either other models, a relationship between a concept and another in another model. And all of these things helps us to build a more granular meaning to the concepts we are revolving around in terms of what we have in our content base. The same goes with things like labels, different labels, different language labels, acronyms, synonyms, and also possibly cater for layman's vocabulary. This is one of the ambitions here, because they have learning resources that are mainly for professionals, medical professionals, but they're also having a new set of learning resources for people with different conditions, meaning patients or any citizen with a specific medical condition. And in that case, they need to be able to label that, tag that accordingly with the correct codification system from the medical professions perspective. But when it's going to be shown or in the search user interface, they have to be able to deliver a layman's vocabulary on top of that, if you understand what I mean. The other thing we want to do, and this is what you can see here, this is the visualization of the model, how the model actually brings together different concepts, and these different concepts, the relationships, the properties and fields and attributes, these are the things we feed into the search engine, and by that we're able to build a graph that is narrowing down, take away biased problems with vocabulary where people have misinterpretation and so forth, and trying to help them to map in this terrain. Moving into the second one here, it was the health records, and this is in Swedish. I'm terribly sorry about this. But what we're doing here is we're doing the same thing. We're taking out the information from a schema-based structured health record system, where we can have the structure, but most of the things actually in the record-keeping system is unstructured text. And that text is run through a graph of medical terms that we are using. A similar technology as we did for England, another ontology management tool, but that doesn't matter because it's a similar setup. And what we can do is to help the professionals, the medical professionals, to navigate in these huge records, especially if you have a patient with many different medical conditions and problems, and also be able to annotate, semantically annotate those with corresponding correct wording, and then relate that, meaning that we can actually go from a schema-based repository, a business application, be it your CRM, your ERP system, or any transactional system, and you can map those models you have there with the content you store in any of all your business applications. And this is exactly what we're doing here. We have the business application, which is corresponding to the national health guidelines, the local health guidelines, the clinical guidelines for the specific clinic, based on the same ontology, as you can see. So we can actually, from the end user's perspective, he or she is looking at the record keeping, the schema-based system, but are able to locate information related in a document repository or a CMS, which could be any kind. And going forward, this is what we've been doing also for the NHS. So we have, as you have also probably seen, many of you, Type Ahead, which is one of the favorite search patterns that we are getting acquainted with nowadays. The only difference here is that not only are we bringing up based on what's in the index, the terms that you find when you do fetching in the information into the index of either search engine, but we're also running it through the semantic models, and hence, as you can see here, we have just separated this to show the differences, where we get automatic query completion, and sometimes there are concepts from the taxonomies or control vocabularies that have a relationship that we can build upon. And due to the fact that we have that, we are able to build pretty smart user interfaces. And I will say now, just promptly, this is a pilot, so it's not a nice looking user interface. We're just trying to show all the different bits and bolts we can do with the semantic technology, with automatic filters on the top, on the left-hand side, depending on the content structure. But we're also able to pull out the related terms from the terminology, and more like this from the Elasticsearch capabilities. Another thing we can do, which you have all probably seen when you've been using Delve, is we are using the graph saying, well, actually, we would like to narrow down our search using this specific author. And this, by using that as a filter mechanism, we then pull out, depending on her bio, and the bio is written in just plain text. We have indexed all the bios from the authors of the learning resources, and added different disciplines, professional roles, organizational belonging, educational level, all of these properties and fields out of a free text summary of someone, and then started to build the graph. And what you also can see here is that not only are we doing the structuring of unstructured data based on the model, but we're also able to pull out, depending on her contribution, what kind of related concepts. And these concepts are derived from the ontologies that we have built. And in this case, we have like 4,000 conceptual terms to build up both disciplines and other things. And a similar thing, you can see the related work out of what she's been contributing with. So we can build, similar as you can see on Google, when you search for Leonardo da Vinci or something, you get the knowledge pane on the right-hand side, when there is someone who's been codifying information for you. Secondly, here is within Telecom Event, and this is in Barcelona. I spent some time here in Barcelona on this event this year. Lots of fun, good sun, and we helped them. Basically, the baseline here is that they have a multitude of different organizing principles, because it's both the exhibitors, the visitors, there's the speakers, it's the one who run the facilities, it's the owner of the conference brand, and all of them have different content repositories. And what we wanted to do is, can we have a concerted way of sharing the same vocabulary, using the same concepts, so that from the A to Z, from the inception of you register for a conference until you go to the conference and you get your mobile device telling you where to go, could we use the same unique identifier all through the value chain, independently of what kind of structure we have? And this is what we did. So we derived a set of entities that was going across. It's obviously revolving around events. It's lots about a person or persons, different roles, characters. They are related to organizations which are situated in places, and they possibly offer products or offers. These are the entities that we pulled into the domain model, and then we added some terminologies. And by having that kind of structure in the bottom, we were able to lever two simultaneously quite different conferences based on the same model, running in Barcelona at the same time. And now we're doing it in Singapore and in US going forward. This is the architecture they have. I will not go into detail on describing it, but basically they have a set of tools to do the content creation. It's Salesforce, it's both cloud, it's on-premise, it's lots of different things. In the middle, we have a content aggregation similar to the one I showed you in terms of the search engine. We actually ingest things and we do semantic enhancement. And then you have a different set of data consumption opportunities to show. It's the websites, it's the newsletters, it's the mobile application. In the middle of this, we have a metadata application, similar to one I showed you before, where you have a user interface, you build your graphical taxonomies. You could import existing open link data, and you can then from that, through the APIs, build up the sign-up forms with the correct corresponding check buttons and whatever you could be, radio buttons, so it all become in a control vocabulary. The same when you build a CMS page or when you show it in the app. Same for the search. Well, you've seen that before, so I'll just move around. And here is a very good example. So, for instance, they have a very specific tailor-made CMS for running the agendas. Who's going to be speaking in the different scenes, and we were using. It's extracting a collection out of 500-600 words or somewhat we had in the vocabulary, but obviously we cannot. It's useless to tag everything with 500-600 words. You have to make a pick list, and that pick list is a SCOS collection, which we just publish and say, well, here's a SCOS collection out of terms that is relevant for the themes for the conference, and that will be populated. And when I then go to the mobile app and sign up for different conference events I should go to, it's tagged accordingly. So it's kind of the whole value chain, if you will. In this case, we're using linked open data, and I will move into that linked open data, meaning that there are actually pretty good, decent control vocabularies out there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's actually there. For instance, this is geonames, which today I think have 11 million entities of geographical names. And in this case, I took the United Kingdom, and each of them are organized with very good record keeping. So you can have a card here saying, well, the name of the country, the location, and so forth, and you can download it, which we did. So we picked out. We don't need 11 million entities. We need only to know which are the 249 relevant countries that people come from, related to a continent, and some of them have different states. This was published into the same ontology management system as entities, and then we could build conceptual mapping, saying, well, actually we have a marketing concept saying people from Europe, Middle East, and Africa, EMEA, which is a known acronym. It's not a continent. It's a bunch of countries. We can actually regroup and repurpose the same concepts for different conceptual uses, and this is what we've been doing. And the same goes for public information about the organizations. Most of the organizations that are exhibitors have also wiki pages and online pages. Hence, we can actually pick up their registration and get the data from them, put that into schema from schema.org, where we publish it. We get it into JSON, but now I'm a little bit technical here, and we are using a online already referenceable ontology that is provided as a standard from W3C. Hence, we are building on the standards. We're reusing the data from the outside to put it into the production line internally in a digital workplace for the people running the events. And in the end user journey looks like this. It's a mobile app, and we post the whole graph into a Neo4j application that's run on the mobile app, meaning that you can actually find where I should go, who should I meet, depending on the semantic enhancement we're doing all through the process. And obviously, they are using lots of different sensors in the event, so that you can actually pull out, moving patterns and everything else. I will not go into that, but that's also something we're diving into to find things. The next thing here is the municipality where I live, and here they have both the public service information directive from the EU, and they need to cope with master data. And I pulled together this one pager, but basically what it says is that we are going to use standards, build domain models, put those domain models into metadata and an ontology management tool that will publish them as RDFs. RDFs will then be used for the data rule-based import, similar to what you do when you do the pipeline of indexing information. And that will then be put together in a master database as a graph database. That graph database will then be used either by other systems on an integration bus or for providing semantic search experiences on the external facing site, on their open data catalogs, or the intranet run as they speak now. They're moving from Ludus nodes to Office 365. So we're going to use these models, these master data models, to infuse into the Office 365 environment. And we're using standards, open standards. We don't reinvent the things. So the UK government have been so kind and published a vocabulary for public services. Obviously it's in English, so we just needed to make a Swedish translation of those terms that are related to the municipality, and then using another vocabulary which is from the European Union, where they have realized that actually there are 4 things that most public services revolve around, and that is organization, person, place, and service, because these are the 4 key concepts they're working with. We rehashed those ontologies and the W3 that I showed you earlier, put it into the system, and made the data available. And here you can see just a snippet out of the integrated public service vocabulary. It's like 3,000 words, and similar to the other one I showed you, it's arranged according to SCOS. But the good thing here is that we can actually build collections. This is what it says in Swedish here, collections, meaning that if we have 5,000 terms in a specific context, in a specific application, we don't need those 5,000 terms. We might just need 10 terms to populate a form, an application, an e-service. And all of these could be done because we're publishing it as linked open data sets, which has unique identifiers and URI that could be repurposed across all the different application areas. So moving into Office 365 and more. I've been speaking quite fast because I had 2,000 slides, I think, but I hope you have survived so far. I have a couple of minutes left, and I will move ahead. Anyway, okay, Office 365, we know it. I use it daily. I have it, and it's it's an evolving beast. It adds new features and functionalities. Some of them I don't know how to cope with. Some of them I've been using for quite a long time. In reality, most of my clients have this, SharePoint on premises. They are just about to move out to Office 365. It's supposedly to be an easy journey, but it's not, because you have your legacy. So you need to be able to connect to other resources, and you have your external website. This is I could render this for most of my clients. This is the setup they have, and they wonder, where should we go and what could we do? Well, actually, there are opportunities. You can actually put what we call an inside engine using the Cloud SASA, so you can actually connect all kinds of different repositories, both those in Office 365, but also other repositories in other cloud services like Salesforce or whatever that could be. And I will just mention one word for this. This is the managed metadata service that we are using in SharePoint. It's the worst implementation of a taxonomy tool I ever encountered. I hate it. It's user unfriendly. I would be so glad if Microsoft could just make it work as any of the other tools I'm working with. But this is the one I have to work with daily. It's very difficult to move around terms. It's impossible to make relationships. You cannot build ontologies. It's a term set. That's it. And it's used across. The thing is, we are using all these tools. Search, the intranet, the document libraries, the Jammer, the OneNotes, and everything. The problem is, it's silos. So it's not actually one search fits one for all. It's actually silo search within Office 365, and they already know this. The only way to come across a way to open up this is to use Delve. And Delve is, I like Delve. It's a nice feature, and I really like it on the mobile because it gives me a time-based snippet on what's going on within my domain, as you can see here. I like that, and the way they organize the data in Delve. But it's also time-based. It's in some way, in the way they're organizing the different tiles. So what we need to try to do is to have a hybrid search where we actually can inject information from both on-premises services, external services, and into the Office 365 and be able to search across all these domains. And this is what we have been doing. And these are pictures of our forthcoming, hopefully good-looking internal workplace at Findwise. I'm saying fingers crossed, because the shoemakers have the same worst shoes. We probably have the worst search experience internally, and I will not show you that because then my managers will kill me. But this is the hope of a grand, more improved search experience we are looking at building. And we're doing similar ones for a couple of clients. So we're working with the tiles, we're working with the new kind of set of structure, and you've seen this, structuring way. You have the opportunities to have building up different facets using similar as the one I showed you for the semantic search for NHS. And we can do the same thing here using Microsoft technology, developing different suggestions, related links, and so forth, and building further really interesting and intriguing ways of compiling this search experience. All of this is only possible if you have a set of organizing principles to the backbone of what's in the Office 365 environment and the developing of new capacities. You need to know what should go where and why and for how long. You have to ask those questions once again. The organizing things that I said from the organizing disciplines, they don't go away, even if you have nice ways of dealing with this. And when I'm speaking to my fellow colleagues in Oslo who are working with the search capacities, they still think that the Taxonomy system keywords thing will be the one connecting things. And I think they're wrong. I think they're dead wrong. I think there's a need to bridge between the user-generated content tags and semantically enhancing using models to get a richer and better user experience when you go through a new digital workplace. And as you can see, there's a lot of slides. I will share the slides on SlideShare so you can see them. So the building blocks for the information architecture within SharePoint, as you know, are the content model. It's a very, I think it's a decent content model, and you derive that using your content types and define the hierarchical, structure of the content types, which kind of properties you will put into the hierarchical content types. You have sites, you have different types of content, you have term store, hated, you have the search, you have the Microsoft Graph, you have Delve, and then you have all the different silos, Jammer, Outlook, and so forth going forward. This is a nice picture from a fellow friend of mine, Mark Lear, who's also working with information architecture, and he published a post on his blog yesterday, so I snipped that one from him, basically saying, well, actually you can attach taxonomies into your OneDrive as well, using managed metadata in OneDrive, and be able to categorize and get a better structure even in your OneDrive. And I think that is a good idea. The problem is that it's still not connected to the SharePoint-ish way to do this similar thing, but there are workarounds around this, feature. And I think this is a good way of thinking of, well, actually, it would be nice to use the same control vocabulary even in my own OneDrive that I'm going to share, so I can tag my content accordingly with the corporate language, if you will. Thank you. And now I open up the floor for questions and time. I've spent 4 minutes too much. I hope not everybody has left. So do we have any questions? Let's see, Sandy. Oh, thank you, Sandy. Anybody else? have any questions? As I said, I will publish this slide deck on my SlideShare, and Agnes and the team will provide you with the links to all that. And I'm also writing a chapter in a forthcoming book on this same boring themes around organizing principles. I will also get you the references to the different authors that I steal with pride from, friends of mine, and I have also very long blog posts that could kill you, so you can read them as well. So I will send forward a set of further reading for those of you who have interest in doing so. So, my friends, if there's no questions, I'm happy to been able to run this, and as you said, I will send you further reading, and my shares will be on SlideShare. Where do you start? Does an organization have this information to hand? Yeah, well, that's a good question. The thing is, independently of what kind of environment I've been working with all kinds of industries: life science, healthcare, industry, manufacturing, retail, independently. There are pockets of structure, obviously, because they run a organization, hence there must be some structuring organization to it. Having that said, some organizations, due to regulatory constraints, need to be more thorough. So, for instance, if you work within the energy segment, running a nuclear plant, for instance, you would not be doing that in a sloppy way, if you will, because no one wants you to run a nuclear plant in a sloppy way. You want to have all your guidelines, your policies, your documents, instructions to telling the engineers how to run the nuclear plant in a proper way, so that there will not be a hazardous incident out of running that. Other businesses that are moving very fast, I've been working with a set of really fun new, I cannot mention the name because they will kill me, apart from that, but which do not have legacy, new startups. So they just turn on the switch, pull out a lot of different services. Some of them are for free, some of them are open source, and build a digital workplace in more, let's say, fuzzy manner. It works for some time, but then in the end, I can mention one of them. Spotify is one of them. So Spotify is a very good example of structuring their content. So in the end of the day, they realize that they need to do, have some concerted organizing principles to the shared content they have to run, whatever that could be. So I say, independently of the industry, I will always find what I will call taxonomies or structures or control vocabularies, organizing principles that different parts of the business agree upon. As I said, it's a discussion about meaning, the meaning of a word, the meaning of a concept in relationship to the tasks or your professional bearing, whereabout you are, whatever you are supposed to do. So that means, for instance, if I take a manufacturing company that I've been working with, obviously the guy who sits as an engineer developing in R&D new items that will be pulled into a robot. This is a company that builds robots, fancy, cool stuff. He's interested in very granular, works to have 3D rendered constructs. The guy sitting in after sales, he's interested in bits and parts of what the engineer has been doing. The guy at the marketing level, he's not, he's interested in the product category, depending on the segmentation of the different market segments and the clients. meaning that they might look at the product, if that is kind of one of your master data, is the product or the service, differently. The same goes for simple things like any internet today needs to be filtered based on user profiling, saying who you are, where you come from, and what's your professional role, and your organizational belonging, and your tasks, or whatever. I mean, the rich profile that we hope to build on top of the user to help them to do proper filtering. Yeah, that's a good idea. Then you realize that, well, actually, the master data that describes your organizational chart is not one. There are multifaceted ways of looking at your organization. The people at the finance department, they look at cost center, which is running for the transactional systems to run the business of economy. Whereas the people in the HR department, who also have an organizational chart, throwing people into different boxes, saying who's the manager. The problem is that these are, in many cases, not leveled, because they have different purposes for the record keeping. As I said, the purpose for why you put things in a specific order. And if you take, for instance, the works I've been doing now for the municipality, yeah, well, I can do a very simple case. Okay, my kids go to local school here. It's a named entity. It provides school and educational services. From my perspective, being a citizen, a dad, putting my kids to the school, it's one entity where they go to school. Internally, it's two schools, because there's two principals. It's a big school, so it's two entities. And actually, it's divided into even more granular levels of organizational structures, which I, as a user, being a citizen, a dad, couldn't bother about. I just want to know, I'm going to take my kids to school. The same goes for many of the central core entities that your business revolves around. You will find disagreement on how people perceive that specific thing. Take the client, take the services you provide. Many of those things we do disagree. And we just have to realize, well, there might not ever be a golden standard, but can we agree on some of the standards that we apply so we actually can do semantic enhancement, say, well, actually, there are multifaceted ways to look at a thing, and use the tools that are really good at, helping us. The same goes for, if you take the content management domain. If you're going to do, publishing an internet or an external site, the editors hate metadata. They despise the idea of tagging. It's boring, it's tedious, it's a waste of time. They don't want to do it, but they want to have good structure. So I mean, to ask them kindly, well, if we could provide you with a set of core terms, concepts to relate to your topic, and the system will actually provide you with a auto suggestion of tags which will be appropriated depending on your whereabouts, in which collection, hence site or whatever, you will put your content, the whereabouts of your content, the audience of your content, and your professional role. All of these things are metadata tags that we could systematically add without putting any extra text workload on top of the editor. And that is what I think that's kind of a key design principle, to make things that are really complex easier, but agree on a common ground, on a playground. These are the common rules that apply for all the content and data we have within our business. Any more questions? And I'll just make a last disclaimer. I can say I am totally tool agnostic. So the tools I've been showing you, it doesn't all of these organizing principles that do not depend on that. We work with digital means and data and information in lots of different contexts, and we have to realize the user needs, the information governance, and the structures to that, and be realistic. We are humans, so all the companies are run by humans, and we are messy, and we will not stop being messy, because then we will stop being humans. Thank you very much. If there's no more questions, I'm happy to close down.